So welcome again to our sessions on Google Data Studio. This is session number 6, where we're going to talk about Cloud SQL for faster and better reports. Basically, the problem occurs that when your data elements get very large, you really need to put it in a database instead of just using Google Sheets. It'll get very slow trying to load the data, and you're limited on the number of blends that you can make in Google Data Studio. So one option is to put your data in a Cloud SQL instance, and then you can create as many joins, blends, views, all those words are somewhat interchangeable, and then bring them into Google Data Studio as needed. So let's take a look at that. The first thing you want to do is go to the link cloud.google.com and click on Get Started for free. What this environment is a way to create a SQL database in the cloud. Now, if you choose to, you could have a SQL database anywhere you like, and Google Data Studio will pretty much connect to it. But this is one option that you can have. You just go through the steps to put in your information, the account type, your name and address, and at one point it is going to ask you for a credit card. Because Google is sort of selling this product, you get automatically 300 credits for free when you first start out. We found as a small school that that's sufficient for 1 year. If you're a larger school, you may find that you need a little bit more than the $300, but you can sort of judge it. You can watch and see how much data you're using in the cloud, and then your pricing goes up a little bit. But so far, it's been very affordable for us. So I'm not going to continue here, otherwise I would be having to put in credit card information, and we don't want to do that today. But this is just to give you an idea of that's what you do. And then once that database is created, I'm clicking over to another product here called DB Forge Studio 2019. It just happens to be a product I like a lot, and I want to show you how it would work. So here I am in this environment, and I have a little database. This is the one that's in my Cloud SQL that I've set up. And I want to go in, and I've already added the for class data, which is that demographic data. Let's take a look at that. So here's all my columns with my demographic data that we were using in the earlier workshop. And now I want to bring in the assessment. So I'm going to go back to tables and just show you how one would do that. So I go to Tools, Import. It's an Excel file. Go find the Excel file. It happens to be in my downloads. It is called Sample Assessment. Click on that. Go next. It'll ask me, is it going into a new table or into an existing table? So there is a way that you can save this process that I'm going through and automate it so it happens every time, every night, for example. So it becomes a little batch file if folks are still familiar with those. You go through and save this sequence that we're doing here, and it would go into an existing table. And when it does that, it automatically updates every day. So that's why I like this tool. It's not free, I'll be honest, but it allows me to automate my imports. So for now, we're going to go into a new table. We're going to create a new file name, new table name. Click Next. And I'll tell it that my headers are in my first row. There's my data. Click Next. If I had any special delimiters that I needed, clicking Next again, going through the process, and continuing and just clicking Next until the file imports. And import, and it's done. So I'm going to close that window, and you'll see now, let's close that up, that we have Tardy, was a file I was working on earlier, and we have Sample Assessment and for class. So what I could do now if I wanted to is put these two files together in what in the SQL world is called a view. So let's make a new view here. And it'll look familiar to you from the blending. So I like to work in the design mode here. And I'm going to go and I'm going to grab my class. And I'm going to grab my sample assessment. So you basically, if you've ever used Microsoft Access, feels exactly the same. And then I'm going to do what's called a join on my user ID. So what that says is any record that's in this one, I also want to join the level from this one. Makes sense, right? Very simple to do. I click Apply Changes. And now I've created a view which I will rename. And that view is now another database. So I can use that view now in my Google Data Studio as a data source and manipulate it. So I could take many assessments, put them together here very efficiently, and then just use the data source in Google Data Studio as one data source so that I don't have to make many, many blends. The other thing that allows me to do is one-to-many relationships. So for example, I might have a lot of records in one table and only a few matches in a secondary one. I can create what's called an outer join that allows me to match the data if it exists, but if it doesn't, don't delete my other pieces. So it gets to be in more complicated concepts, but I think once you start to build in this area, you'll find that it's really efficient and really easy to use. Hope you enjoyed that. The next step, of course, would be to create the data source, and that you've already seen how to go through that. Instead of choosing Google Sheets, you would simply select Cloud for Google. Let me show you where that is. So if I'm in my workshop file, I'm going to go back to resource. Sorry, clicking around. My apologies. We're going to go to Manage Added Data Sources. We're going to add another data source. And instead of doing a Google Sheet this time, we would select Cloud SQL for MySQL. And when you do that, you have to authorize that you can connect to it. And then you go through and put in your credentials that were created when you created your original SQL file. And you would have done that when you were on the cloud. So basically allows your connectivity. But really not a difficult process. For those of you who are interested in security, you can set it up as an SSL environment. And you can also limit what IP addresses go to the database. So a really nice feature, and as you progress in this world of getting comfortable in Google Data Studio, you may start to find you're interested in it. Hope this has been helpful. Thank you.